The night was thick with fog as the old playground loomed at the end of Maple Street, its rusted swings creaking softly in the wind. For years, it had been abandoned, shunned by the townsfolk who whispered about the tragic events that had unfolded there. A group of children who had vanished without a trace during a summer's twilight, their laughter echoing eerily in the memories of those left behind. As the clock struck midnight, a small group of curious teens dared each other to explore the desolate park, their flashlights flickering nervously against the creeping shadows. When they stepped onto the cracked pavement, a chill ran down their spines, not just from the cold but from an unsettling presence that seemed to envelop them. The swings swayed as if in welcome, beckoning them closer, while the rusted slide stood tall like a sentry watching their every move. They could almost hear the distant giggles of children, mingled with a sense of foreboding that clawed at their hearts. One of them, Alex, gripped his flashlight tighter, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched as they moved deeper into the playground, their breaths visible in the cold night air. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the silence, sending the group into a frenzy. They turned towards the sound, their hearts racing, only to find one of their own, Jenna, staring wide-eyed at something just beyond the trees. "Did you see that?" she gasped, her voice trembling. The others exchanged worried glances, their earlier bravado quickly fading. They urged her to calm down, but as she pointed toward the darkened forest, an otherworldly chill swept through the air, drowning out the echoes of their laughter. Determined to prove there was nothing to fear, they approached the edge of the playground, where the shadows seemed to twist and shift with a life of their own. The ground felt unnaturally cold beneath their feet, and an overwhelming sense of dread washed over them as they peered into the darkness. It was then that they saw a figure, barely discernible, standing just beyond the tree line. It was small, too small, and swaying as if caught in a gentle breeze. "It's just a trick of the light," Josh whispered, his voice barely audible. Yet, deep down, they all knew that something was terribly wrong. As they backed away, the swings began to move again, this time at an alarming speed, their creaking growing louder, filling the air with an ominous melody. The laughter they had heard earlier morphed into a cacophony of screams, echoing through the playground, reverberating in their minds. Panic set in, and the group turned to flee, but the ground seemed to shift beneath them, roots and vines creeping up to entangle their feet, pulling them closer to the heart of the playground. The once familiar surroundings transformed into a labyrinth of shadows, each twist and turn leading them deeper into the nightmare. Jenna, still frozen in fear, suddenly broke free from the group, drawn inexplicably toward the figure that stood waiting for her. The others screamed her name, but their voices were swallowed by the thick fog that now surrounded them. With each step she took, the laughter grew louder, swirling around her like a whirlwind, a haunting melody beckoning her to join them. As she reached the figure, her flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. The moment was suffocating. It felt as if time itself had stopped. Then, as if sensing their despair, the playground came alive. The merry-go-round began to spin, faster and faster, an inescapable force drawing the remaining teens closer to the center. They grasped at the surrounding equipment, but it was as if the playground was alive, shifting and morphing, consuming their fear and replacing it with a raw, primal terror. One by one, they were pulled into the chaos, their screams merging with the disembodied laughter of the children who had come before them. In the center, Jenna felt the figure's cold, small hands clasp around hers, and she was filled with a sense of eerie calm. The figure's face was obscured, but she could sense the deep sorrow radiating from it, a longing for companionship that transcended time and space. The moment she let go of her fear, she understood this was not just a playground, it was a trap, a place of lost souls forever searching for what had been taken from them. The realization struck her as the others reached out in vain, their eyes wide with terror. As the laughter enveloped them, Jenna felt a sense of belonging, a strange comfort in the chaos, and she closed her eyes, letting the darkness wash over her. In the days that followed, the playground remained unchanged, a forgotten relic of the past, save for the whispers that floated through Maple Street. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones, recalling the children who had vanished, never to be found. But now a new legend emerged, one of a group of teens who ventured into the depths of the playground and became part of its tragic tale. Their laughter intertwined with the echoes of the lost, and the old playground stood silently, waiting for its next visitors, hungry for new souls to join the eternal game. As the moon hung high, casting a silver glow over the playground, the air became charged with an eerie energy. Days turned into weeks, and the small town of Maple Street seemed to grow darker, shadows lingering longer in the corners of homes. The remaining teens, Josh, Alex, and a few others struggled to cope with the sudden absence of Jenna, each grappling with the guilt of leaving her behind. They formed a tight circle, sharing whispered fears and stories of that fateful night, but the more they talked, the more they felt the weight of something watching them. One evening, emboldened by a mix of desperation and determination, Josh suggested they return to the playground. "We need to find out what happened," he insisted, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and resolve. Alex, hesitant at first, finally nodded, realizing they could not live with the uncertainty. The group gathered flashlights and worn-out courage, the air thick with an unspeakable dread as they made their way back to the place where laughter had turned to screams. Arriving at the playground, they were greeted by the familiar sight of the swings swaying softly, as if in anticipation. The fog rolled in thick, wrapping around their legs like a shroud. They approached the entrance, hearts pounding in unison, remembering Jenna's terrified gaze. The chill in the air was palpable, every gust of wind whispering secrets that sent shivers down their spines. "Let's stick together," Alex urged, his voice barely above a whisper. As they crossed into the playground, the atmosphere shifted, growing heavy with a sense of foreboding. This time, the playground seemed more alive than ever. The merry-go-round creaked ominously, and the distant echoes of children's laughter morphed into something sinister. As they ventured deeper, the shadows lengthened and shifted, twisting into grotesque shapes that flickered at the edges of their vision. "Did you hear that?" Josh asked, his voice trembling as he glanced nervously around. The others nodded, a collective understanding settling among them. Something was watching. They reached the spot where Jenna had been drawn toward the darkened forest. It felt wrong, as if the very ground was steeped in sorrow. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught their attention, a silhouette darting between the tree and the trees. Without thinking, Josh stepped forward, but the others grabbed his arms, pulling him back. "We shouldn't split up again," Alex said urgently. The figure disappeared, but they could still hear the echo of a child's giggle, sweet yet laced with malice. In a moment of shared resolve, they decided to circle the playground, hoping to uncover the truth behind the strange happenings. As they walked, the air grew colder, their breath visible like ghostly apparitions. The swings began to creak louder, and the laughter turned into a wailing cry that sent chills down their spines. They huddled closer together, feeling the fear radiating off one another. Suddenly they stumbled upon a weathered, forgotten signpost near the edge of the playground, its letters faded and barely legible. It read, "Lost souls play here." A wave of nausea washed over them as they realized the playground had a sinister history. They were not just dealing with the echoes of the past, they were confronting something malevolent, an entity that thrived on fear and despair. Just as they began to process this revelation, the ground beneath their feet trembled, and a deep rumble filled the air. In that moment, Jenna's voice seemed to call out to them, carried by the wind. "Help me!" The sound pierced their hearts, a mixture of desperation and haunting familiarity. Without thinking, they ran toward the source, driven by the hope of saving their friend. As they neared the trees, the shadows twisted, forming a barrier that pushed them back. Fear clawed at their minds, but Josh gritted his teeth, determined to break through. With a collective scream, they pushed against the darkness, feeling the ground shake violently beneath them. The shadows screamed back, an echo of their fears swirling around them, trying to ensnare them. Suddenly they broke through into a clearing where Jenna stood, her eyes wide with fear but strangely tranquil. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered, her voice laced with sorrow. "It's too late for me." The ground around them pulsed with a dark energy, and the shadows coalesced into figures, ghostly children with hollow eyes and outstretched hands. They surrounded Jenna, tugging at her as if trying to pull her deeper into the darkness. "Join us," Jenna, one of the spectres, cried, its voice a twisted mockery of childhood innocence. The others felt their hearts race as they realized the truth. The playground was feeding on their fear, using it to keep Jenna trapped in its web. "Help me break free," Jenna cried, reaching out to her friends. But as they moved closer, the ground roared in anger, and the playground itself began to shift, morphing into a labyrinth of despair. The figures danced around them, their laughter now a chilling cacophony that drowned out reason. The teens felt themselves being pulled apart, the playground becoming a nightmarish maze where each turn threatened to lead them to despair. In a moment of clarity, Alex remembered the stories of the children who had disappeared, how they had been lured by the very thing they feared. "We have to face it," he shouted, turning to his friends. "We can't let fear control us." With newfound resolve, they joined hands, forming a circle around Jenna, their combined strength pushing against the darkness. As they concentrated on their bond, the shadows recoiled, momentarily disoriented. Jenna's eyes shimmered with hope, and together they began to chant the names of their lost friends, memories of laughter and joy flooding their minds. The playground shuddered, the oppressive weight of sorrow lifting slightly, as if the spirits were being momentarily appeased. But the darkness would not easily relent. With a furious howl, the figures surged forward, trying to break the circle. Just as hope seemed lost, a flash of light erupted from their joined hands, illuminating the playground in a blinding brilliance. The shadows shrieked, retreating in fear, and Jenna's eyes sparkled with tears. "Keep going," she urged, her voice breaking through the chaos. As the light expanded, the playground began to unravel, the rusted swings and warped slide cracking under the pressure. With every chant they pushed back against the malevolent force, their friendship becoming a beacon of strength. In that moment, they realized the true power of their bond. Love and courage could shatter the darkness that sought to consume them. The shadows writhed and twisted, and with one final surge, the playground exploded in a burst of light. They felt a force pulling them together, drawing them closer as they shielded Jenna from the remnants of the darkness. In the heart of the explosion, they found themselves transported back to the entrance of the playground, panting and disoriented. As the fog began to clear, the playground stood silent, stripped of its sinister energy. Jenna was there, shaken but alive, and the relief flooded through them like a warm embrace. They had faced their fears and emerged victorious, but the memory of the darkness lingered. "We need to make sure it never comes back," Josh said, glancing at the others. They nodded, knowing they had forged a bond stronger than fear. In the days that followed, the playground was demolished, replaced with a new park filled with laughter and light. The townsfolk began to heal, sharing stories of the teens who had returned to rescue their friend. The whispers of lost souls faded, and a new legend emerged, one of bravery and friendship conquering darkness. Yet, in the quiet corners of Maple Street, some still felt a tingle of unease when the fog rolled in. Occasionally, a soft giggle could be heard on the wind, a reminder of the playground that once thrived on fear and the children who would always be part of its story. As long as they remembered, the darkness would hold no power, a bittersweet victory etched in the hearts of those who dared to confront their nightmares. As the new park blossomed in place of the old playground, the laughter of children echoed through Maple Street, a joyful sound that masked the lingering unease among the townsfolk. Josh, Alex, and their friends spent their days helping with the transformation, planting flowers and painting benches, yet a shadow remained in their hearts, a reminder of what they had faced. One evening, as dusk fell and the sky turned a deep shade of indigo, Josh found himself wandering back to the edge of the new park, his thoughts heavy with the memories of that fateful night. The air was thick with nostalgia, the breeze whispering secrets only he could hear. He stood there, staring at the spot where the old playground had stood, feeling the weight of the past pressing down on him. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. He turned quickly, half expecting to see a figure lurking in the shadows. Instead, he found nothing but the rustling leaves and the soft glow of the park's lights. But as he took a breath to steady himself, a gentle laughter floated through the air, a sound so familiar yet hauntingly distant. It was a sound he had tried to forget. "Jenna," he called softly, hope and fear mingling in his chest. The laughter grew louder, wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. He felt a chill run down his spine, but it wasn't entirely unwelcome. It was as if Jenna was nearby, watching over them, reminding him that they had conquered darkness together. As the moon rose high, casting its silver light across the park, Josh closed his eyes and focused on the memory of their bond, the strength they had found in each other. "We did it," he whispered, a sense of peace washing over him. The laughter echoed again, this time softer, like a lullaby carried by the wind. The next day, as the sun rose, the townspeople gathered for the grand opening of the new park. The air buzzed with excitement, children running around, their faces painted with joy. Josh, Alex, and the others joined in the celebration, but every so often their gazes flickered toward the trees lining the park, where shadows danced and secrets lurked. As the day faded into twilight, the teens gathered at the park's edge, a silent agreement passing between them. "Let's make a promise," Alex suggested, his voice steady. "No matter what happens, we'll always remember what we faced, and we'll protect this place." They nodded, each of them placing a hand over their hearts, vowing to cherish their friendship and the memories they had forged. Just then, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending a shiver through the air. A soft giggle echoed again, this time joined by the laughter of children, a harmonious blend of joy and remembrance. As they stood together, the stars twinkling overhead, they felt a warmth surrounding them. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, love and friendship could prevail. Jenna's spirit, they realized, would always be with them, her laughter entwined with their memories, a guiding light through the shadows. And as they turned to join the festivities, the park felt alive, not just with laughter but with a promise that the past would never be forgotten. The new playground stood as a testament to their bravery, a place where light would always triumph over darkness, where every child could play without fear. With the echoes of the past and the laughter of the present intertwining, they stepped forward into the future, knowing that together they could face anything that lay ahead. The playground was reborn, and with it, a legacy of courage, hope, and enduring friendship.